Hey guys, welcome back for episode 2 of the Vocal Journeyman. In these first few episodes, I'm going to lay out some concepts and the kind of really give you a perspective on where I'm coming from in my journey. And also, if you pay attention, we're going to talk about what little I know so far about vocals and stuff like that. So this episode is going to be called Fach und Stimmregister. Fach und Stimmregister, which Fach is the German word for voice type. Basically, it's the German system for classifying voices. It's used by operatic people all around the world. And Stimmregister is vocal register. And the reason I'm going to bring this up to y'all's is because this is very, very, very important to know about your voice. Okay. And I'll tell you how I got into this. If you go, you can just look this up on Wikipedia and you will see that it lists all sorts of different voices. And basically, what this is the German Fach system. Fach system. I think most people call it Fach. Fachs. Okay, it literally means a compartment or subject for a subject of study, and in this context, we're talking about vocal specialization. So it's a method that is used for classifying singers, primarily opera singers, according to the range, weight, and color of their voices. It's used worldwide, but primarily in Europe, especially in German-speaking countries, and by repertory opera houses. This is a pretty common thing. If you go and you take classes from people in universities who are professionally trained, they typically have been trained in this sort of operatic way of recognizing voice types. And I've heard some online vocal coaches say that this doesn't matter, you don't need to worry about it. Well, you do and you don't, okay? Because these three things that are involved with this are going to matter. There's a reason that this sort of system involves basically three things, right? Which is what? One, your vocal range, okay? Two, your weight or the thickness or heaviness of your voice. And then also three, quote, the color of your voice. So, I am by far not an expert on this, but I did take years ago, back when I was in my 20s, I took a couple college classes on singing, and in one of those classes, I was lucky enough to have the actual director of the entire music program be the teacher of that class. And she was a wonderful woman, very kind, and I think I sung it was a general education singing class, and I sung The Sound of Silence was the song that I did in that class. But she was kind enough to listen to my voice enough and actually give me a designation and tell me what my Fach would be, okay? And it came out to be that she had called me a lyric tenor. Now, I know in the English side of this, there's not as many gradations, okay? But if you come down here to the tenor stuff, what you're going to see about most of the tenors, within about a pitch or two, a whole tone or two on the top or bottom, they're going to be able to operate between middle C, which is C4, and the tenor, which is C3. They're going to be able to operate between C3. It's denoted as C4 here, but it's not really, because it's 8 down. They're going to have a low of about C3, and then they're going to have a high somewhere around C5. Okay, so basically 2 octaves. But that's not your wheelhouse per se. Your wheelhouse is not going to be that. You're going to have to learn how to hit the higher parts of that range with confidence, because it's not going to be that instant if you look into it. But I owe her a great debt of gratitude, because now for me, that was just general education. I wasn't planning on being a singer. I wasn't planning on being a musician. Music was in my life, and guitar playing was in my life, but it had long since taken a back seat to the notion that I was going to be a physicist or a mathematician. So I was said, thank you very much. And, got my grade in the class, which I think was like a B plus or something like that. And I moved on. But now that I've come back to singing in my later years and am taking it more seriously, I'm really thankful for that. I'm thankful that I spent that general education credit to have Sarah tell me that I was a tenor, because now I know that helps me understand a lot about what I can expect from my voice. Okay. So this is the Fach part of the Fach und Stimmregister. Okay. The next part about this is that this range right here that you're going to see, if you come in here and you see yourself comfortably hitting notes within the range that's denoted in here for any one of these, probably get an expert opinion, I guess, but it's not too hard to guess that you're probably one of these voice types. The color, I don't know. Okay. But somewhere in the middle of that 2-octave range, there's going to be a break. Okay. There's going to be a place where below that, your voice is going to seem a lot thicker to you. And depending on how you approach that spot in your voice as you're climbing higher, you may experience a significant vocal break right there. In fact, I actually have several breaks in my voice that registration that I learned to overcome. There is one at right around C sharp 4, even though I start at C3, it's about C sharp 4. And that was one of the first ones that I caught on to, and I thought, whoa, suddenly I got this right, and I can sing all the way up to like an E4, F4, G4. I can get all the way up to there, and then I hit the wall. And I could not get past that. Not in my chest voice at that time. So this is where the next part of this comes in, vocal registration. Okay, so this Fox system is talking about parts that will be written for fully trained tenors of these types. And it gets into things like, should have a good ability to act, a comic tenor, lyric tenor. It goes down into the baritones, right? You get your baritono ligoro, all these different things, light baritones, okay? And this is all coming out of the operatic world. But that range is really, really important. So let's move over here and we'll talk about the next really sort of important idea here, which is a vocal register. So you tend to have that range, and those would be the things that would be expected from you. If you were going to be trained as a tenor, you would be expected to be able to hit in most operas nowadays, instead of hitting in false tone. I'm going to show you guys that. Instead of hitting that C5 in false tone, you would be expected to hit that C5 in chest voice. Okay. So if I go over to lyric tenor and I read that, I'll get back to this vocal register thing in a second. The lyric tenor is a warm, graceful voice with a bright, full timbre that is strong but not heavy and can be heard over an orchestra. Lyric tenors have a range from approximately the C 1 octave below middle C, C3, to the D 1 octave above middle C, right, D5. Similarly, their lower range may extend a few notes below the C3. Now, there are high tenors who are really comfortable E5, F5, something like that. John Anderson is an example of that, okay? There are many vocal shades to the lyric tenor group. Repertoire should be selected according to the weight, colors, and abilities of the voice. So if somebody's picking a song for you to sing, they're supposed to be thinking about, well, you got to accept that you may not have the same color and weight as the person who originally did that song, right? I mean, that's reasonable, right? Because you could cause yourself some frustration if you're trying to sound like somebody and your voice just can't have that color to it. And you'd say, well, it's got to be a tiny thing. Well, yeah, I would say so. I mean, if you can hit the notes and they're believable and you like your presentation and it feels good, what's wrong with it? It's your version of the song, okay? So example here, this is quite interesting. Gilbert Dupré, I think, Gilbert Dupré, 1806 to 1896, a historically significant lyric tenor. He was the first tenor to sing on stage the operatic high C from the chest, which I think that says ut de poitrine, I guess, as opposed to using false tone. Now this is where we're going to segue over into registers, because this false tone right here, False tone is a term used in modern Italian musicology to describe a vocal technique that was used by male opera singers in the past, in which the fluty sounds typical of falsetto singing are amplified by using the same singing technique used in the modal voice register. The result is a bright, powerful, we're going right over here to this page, okay? The result is a bright, powerful tone, often very high-pitched, although the sound is still different from and more feminine than what is produced by the modal voice. The term falsetone is also used for the mixed vocal register that can be achieved by using this technique. Okay, so this is hinting at that mixed register. Now I'm going to go back here and we're going to go to vocal registers explained, and we're going to come back and talk about this. So basically, Mr. Dupre was hitting C5s in his chest voice. Was like the first guy to do that, apparently. That's kind of cool, right? To be the first. I mean, you thought it was like, I don't know, whoever your favorite metal singer is, that's who you thought it was. I don't know. And I guess it doesn't matter, you know, it's just geek level stuff. But let's go back to voice registers explained here. This is on a great little site that I go over to. It's called vocalskills.co.uk. .company.uk. What are vocal registers and what happens to my voice when singing through my range? So vocal registers have really two sorts of things, okay? How you're going to think about this. So from a purely laryngeal perspective, he writes, a register can be defined as a series of consecutive tones produced by the same mechanism, okay? Keep that in mind because we're going to talk about the mechanism in a second. From an acoustic perceptual perspective, a register can be defined as a series of consecutive tones produced with similar voice quality. That voice quality thing is what you'll hear in a lot of programs that are out here that are all across the board, SLS, CVT, other things like that. They're going to focus on the quality of the sound, the type of the sound. And if you can keep that quality of sound across many, many notes, it's the appearance of having one giant voice, right? Which is something we all love. But technically speaking, even people who are very trained at this, if you listen closely, you can hear the mechanical registration happening. I have never noticed. There are people who have lower voices who can learn to make higher notes like B4s and C5s and stuff sound thicker. But I've never heard anybody who can make any male who can make an E5 sound like an E4 in terms of its chestiness. So it's getting thinner, right? The voice is getting thinner as you go higher. Let's take a look at this though, because there's a couple scientific terms, and if you keep this Fach and this Stimmregister in mind, it's going to orient you, right? It's going to be helpful, and that's the only reason to talk about it, right? Is it becomes a helpful way of thinking. So if you go to this site, and I've got the link, you can see the link right here. Take a look at the diagram that they're showing, which shows the layers of your vocal folds. And your vocal folds are sitting inside of your larynx. There's a muscle inside of there, the thyroarytenoid muscle. Some people call it the vocalis muscle. That is the muscle that's responsible for thickening your folds when they come together to connect. And so it is... There's a model here, a scientific model. It says the vocal scientist and researcher Minoru Hirano in 1974 introduced the body cover model of vocal fold anatomy, in which the 5 layers of the vocal fold tissue can be categorized into 2 components, the body and the cover. Okay, and so registration in your voice, okay, is there's actually now a technical way of thinking about it, and this is the way that I like to think about it. I've for myself, you know, I can handle all sorts of terminology, and I really pray to encourage you, if you're watching this, I would encourage you to try to be the kind of person who can handle many terminologies about the same subject, at least to take the time to make a little connection there, and don't be so dogmatic, right? Because especially in a subject like this, the study of the human voice is an exceptionally complex thing, and you may not think so at first, but it truly is. And you've got people coming from all sorts of really, really serious scientific disciplines coming into and studying this. Mathematicians using tensor analysis, old time art critiques who have these super, these opera trainers, of the grand tradition with their, their super well developed 100-year, 200, 300-year traditions of how to do this. There's a huge body of knowledge out there. So I'm just showing you one that is really easy to get us up and running and for you to understand the journey I'm on. Okay. So in the middle of this thing here, where if I jumper back from the false tone here, we'll go all the way back from the lyric. I'm back at this 2-octave stretch that they would be trying to write music for me to sing. In the middle of that puppy, there's a break for me. And I can make that, but across the second break, everybody that I know of starts to struggle right there. Even if you are a tenor, you have to sort of be trained in order to, most people I've ever met, even if they're tenors, they have to be trained to hit that high C, the C5 in their chest voice. They don't just get it. Okay. And that is because of registration. So if you take a look right here, you're going to see that this is a standard that I like to follow in terms of voice registration. You got your M0 where the body and the cover are both loose. That's vocal fry. I'm getting way down here and I'm talking, to you like this. And I'm like, listen, son, there's a couple facts about women that you need to know. I just want to make sure you understand that right now, right? And not necessarily breathy either, right? The breathiness that's just to add emotion to the speech to the son there, right? But okay, that's what some people call fry. Okay, M1 where both the body and the cover vibrate. That is what I'm doing right now. I'm talking to you. You hear me talking to you? I'm talking to you. I most certainly am. I am talking to you right in the pitch, the standard pitch that I usually talk in. If I'm animated, I'm talking at about this pitch. If I'm maybe a little disinterested, maybe I talk lower. If I'm really excited, man, I might be talking up here. If I get really excited, you get me really going, I might average this kind of a pitch. Okay. And of course, if I'm crying, well, right? Okay. But M1 is usually the folds are coming together really, really nicely and they're plump. The vocalis muscle has got them all plumped up and you're getting this really rich sound, as you can hear. I can do all sorts of really cool stuff out of there, right? And I can take and do just really beautiful stuff from the richness of that, right? Okay, so that's what most people would call their chest voice, M1, my talking voice. And I don't know, I always wondered this. I always thought, I wonder if I talk higher, if I can kind of like reset my chest voice to just be higher. And I don't know, I've never heard anybody do that as a way of training the voice. I don't know, maybe there's a couple out there that try to do that. But now we're going to move on to M2. M2 is where the body no longer vibrates. Okay? That means that the vocalis muscle is not vibrating anymore. Only the cover is vibrating. Okay? So M2, right, is thin folds. Okay? But the cover is not the body is not vibrating anymore. Okay? So this is what they're calling mixed voice. This is what some people would describe as mixed voice. And mixed voice is actually, mixed voice is I can't say enough. Mixed voice for me is the holy grail of this entire pursuit. Okay? Because from mixed voice, you can go pretty much anywhere in your voice if you can master mixed voice. And I've heard people say this about mixed voice. They say that most modern pop singers, when they master their mixed voice, they basically punch their ticket. All right, so M3 here is a register where the vocal folds are very thin and very tightly stretched and only the cover vibrates, often with an incomplete fold closure, right? Now they call this M3, they say that this is the whistle. It has very stiff folds. Now there's a little bit of overlap here that I think is not quite as unique as it needs to be, right? Because whistle, I mean, right? I don't even know. I think that might be whistle. I don't know for sure. But the head voice or the falsetto that they're talking about, everybody can do that. So you start talking higher, 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 higher. And I cross pretty smoothly from my chest voice, from my M1 into my quote falsetto. But the falsetto is a really amazing thing because whereas if I'm coming up from my low C to my middle C and I'll go across that and I can mix right there really, really smoothly, I'll get up to about that G, that F sharp 4, that G4. All of a sudden, when I was completely untrained, my voice wanted to just go right over into hello there, how are you? Oh yeah, that's you right there, right? Got it? Yeah, that's you. Okay. It's not necessarily a bad voice, but of course that sounds like I got two different characters living in my brain space, right? So, the whole deal with the mixed voice is that the mixed voice allows you to learn how to pull those things together, okay? Falsetto and head voice, M2, M1. So think of it like M1 is kind of overlapping with where you can go to falsetto, because you can bring falsetto down into places where you could go into head voice. And there's a very interesting way for you to think about this in terms of the antagonism that exists between the two muscles right here that pull down your larynx, okay, and these TA muscles that are in your vocal folds, which tend to plump up your vocal folds, allowing you to get your M1 resonance, okay? And that is, think of it as a two-dimensional plot. Think of it as 2D, right? So if I have no engagement of the TA muscles and no engagement of the CT muscles, there's no phonation there. But if I'm way up only doing CT, right, I'm way up in hey, 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 hey. Okay, that's falsetto all the way over there. And if I'm basically, kind of like just right above, I'm kind of right above, just above my fry, and I'm really strong and I got my good country voice going, I can slip down into fry right there, okay? Those things overlap, but watch this. I can take that falsetto, I can bring it down. Hey, hey. Now you could hear it break over into my chest voice and it became a breathy chest voice, but that can come down. So those two things overlap, right? And strengthening the head voice or strengthening the falsetto, quote unquote, so that it becomes more of a head voice, so that I can go like this. I can go like, hey, what are you thinking? Why are you talking like that? Okay. That kind of singing is something a lot of people do. Okay. More so than that is that mixed voice place, which is actually stronger. And there's a lot of vocal effects and other things that are in there. So this is what I wanted to present to you guys on this little journey. It's a really simple idea, okay? But this simple model, which has just enough science in it in terms of how it explains it to you for you to be like, oh, okay, I get that. I totally get that. Because basically one of the reasons that you break, okay, now there are fantastic systems out there that can teach you how not to break, and nobody wants to break. Nobody wants to break. But the fact of the matter is that these two fundamentally different ways, or seemingly different ways of making sounds, which is the M2 or the falsetto leaning toward head voice when it's stronger, and the chest voice, the reason they break, they overlap in an area. But it is because of the way in which those TA muscles, these guys right here, disengage as you try to go higher and higher. Mixed voice, or this is saying M2, I don't like that, because true mixed voice is in that overlap. It is a mixture of M1 and M2, okay? And it's degrees of that along the way. So that is the holy grail right there. That is my biggest possible dream as a vocalist in the next year, is to master my mixed voice and be able to sing in a mix across a broader range, because of the fact that it will help to bring in more overtones. This is part of the thing. If you get a really washed out high falsetto. Okay, let's see if I can even do it now. Because before I ever tried to train my voice, I used to be able to do a really washed out falsetto that was it was like just a fundamental. And there's more coming down the road about formants and different things like that, and the resonance of the vocal tract. And those are all things that I'm still learning, actually, how to modify vowels correctly in order to maximize resonance. Resonance is probably the next big idea that I'll put forward here. But if you get these two things for now, these two things, what is my voice type, my range, okay, and what is registration? That will help you if you want to walk this journey with me and you want to begin to see maybe what you can do with your voice. Because along the way, we're going to meet a lot of interesting characters. Trust me, I know more than a few interesting characters around all this. So keep that in mind, okay? These two websites that I showed you, excuse me, how do you like that? Just went and burped right there on YouTube. Just had a burp. All right, let's do it. Come on. Yeah, real men burp. That's what they do. All right. Okay, so we'll get into some stuff too. I like to do character voices. I don't know if you guys ever heard that. If you go over to my website, orcauniversal.com, you can see some character voices. I got one I do like this. And this one, I don't even know what this is, but this guy, he's a lemming, basically. And this voice is just so natural for me. I can do this all day long. I can talk like this. I can think like this. There's actually a personality to this thing that is slightly different than who I am, right? All of that kind of stuff is there to be had. So let's get these two in our belt. Fach und Stimmregister. Fach und Stimmregister. So you can say that to your friends. What is your Fach und Stimmregister? And they may slap you right there. I don't know what'll happen. Something will happen though. Okay. Yeah, take some time to check out these websites and have some fun with this. This is very simple, and you will find that and this is something I'm really purposely doing. I've looked at lots and lots of this stuff. As I said, I'm not a master yet, but I do have some college degrees. Okay. So I did actually go on after those singing classes I talked about, and I got a bachelor's degree in mathematics. And then I got a master's degree in environmental science and policy, where I applied mathematics to studying a public policy issue. So I do have a background there. And I noticed that a few good websites, once you start to get a feel for what's the different flavors that are out here, you'll gain some confidence in understanding this, and it will help you to understand what's going on with your voice. Okay. As always, whether you are a seasoned pro or anything, you want to you want to take some pot shots or something there, cowboy, you just go ahead, fire them up in the comments, because I'm here to be loved on. I'm here to be hated on. I'm taking this journey. Okay. I'm taking this journey. So, for all you Christian folks out there who are following me, I want to say God bless. Thank you for stopping in to listen. And I look forward to, hearing any comments you might have regarding anything that has to do with music or faith in music or anything like that. I may not have the answer, but I'll be happy to talk to you about it. So until next time, consider those things: your voice type and vocal registers. See you later.